Okay, so I'm just going to go over the basic things. The nice thing about the new RPA is I can do this much quicker than how I used to do it, because the old RPA that is pre-December, things were all over the place and you had to know where to dig. And literally, like, you'd flip a few pages, oh, there's the meat. Flip a few pages, there's the meat. Now it's pretty much all front loaded for you. So again, I'm skimming through this, going over some of just the quick things, and I'm on espresso right now, so that really helps. Okay, all the stuff at the top, pretty, self-explanatory, what you're going to fill in, blah, 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 blah. How do I find the parcel number? You look it up. You look it up on the MLS. Usually if it's an RPA, it's already there, so it's already been looked up for you. If you've done anything with title, when they've looked up the address, the assessor number is going to be there as well. Blah, blah, blah. All this agency disclosure stuff, that's pretty self-explanatory. This is the stuff that is going to be more of the meat of it. Purchase price, how much are you actually purchasing the home for? Now, this is the offer that you're making. Don't forget, there could be counter offers and negotiations. So this is what you're initially going for. And in fact, I dealt with some friends that they just told me 2 days ago that they want me to be their buying agent. So we're going through all this, and they told me their price range is 600,000 is what they're approved for. And I'm beginning to ask them the questions. Okay, that's great. I need to see your pre-approval letter, and I'm going to need to know how much you have in the bank right now, so I know how far above that number, and or have the discussion with you how far above you're willing to go and how much you can afford to go. So like in their instance, if they're squeaking by at that 600, then that's it. But let's say they have enough for their down, which they're, that's what their loan is calling for, and they have an extra 20,000 in the bank, then I know that, okay, if they're willing to give that up, that 20,000, then we have a little bit of room to play with, and we go from there. Close of escrow, almost everybody puts the number of days for the escrow. You usually don't put a date on it, but the standard is, the days, and the standard is 30, but that, ranges, and it always depends on the type of offer you're making. If you have a loan and you want to make it shorter than 30, you have to talk to the lender and make sure that's feasible. Because if the lender says, no, we cannot fund that loan in anything less than 21 days, and you go ahead and you put a 15-day escrow, then you're in trouble. So you don't want to do that. At the same time, you may have a lender that can say, we can do that loan in 17 days. And then you say, okay, great, we'll promise a 21-day escrow and give us some padding, and tell them that if possible, we'll even close sooner. And that's your close of escrow. Expiration of offer. Sometimes you see people fiddle with this. The standard is 3 days, 5 p.m. It expires. Now, does that mean that it's expired? And if the listing agent comes back and says, yeah, we want to go ahead and go with the offer, now you got to write up a whole new one? No, it just means that's when your offer expired. The offer, though, if everybody goes into escrow and they agree to what your offer is, then you're fine. I have never rewritten an offer that's gone past 3 days, and then we decided, oh, the listing agent's like, yeah, we're going to go into escrow with you. Oh, I got to rewrite the offer. It doesn't happen. So that's just one of those things that, okay, you can go ahead and just leave it at the standard. Initial deposit. The usual is 3%. And why is it 3%? Because in the state of California, if there's damages, liquidated damages from a deal not going through and the seller is entitled to it, they cannot claim any more than 3%. So that's why we just make it, usually the standard is 3% down for the EMD, the initial deposit. If they want to go higher than that, that's fine. It just looks good on the offer and it makes it look like a stronger offer. If they want to go less than that, which some investors do, just know that that's the reason why they're asking for that. And usually they'll specify. But that's one thing that you can consult with your buyers and say, hey, the standard in the industry is 3%. And if you have normal end users and it's going to be 3%, it's going to be, they want their offer to be, be competing with all the other offers, they probably should do that 3%. Now I have dealt with, when I was, I had this one home listed and I had somebody came in with a specialty loan, and the loan itself specified that they had 0% down, but the loan was a guaranteed loan that they were going to get. So the buying agent was very smart. She called me up and she let me know that it's a special loan and all the little ins and outs to it. And it actually will make the deal easier for us in the long run. Because me just looking at it on paper, I'm like, what is going on here? They have no skin in the game. Why are we doing this? But then when she called me up and let me know, then that was something I was able to tell my sellers. And that ended up actually being the loan we went with. We went with that buyer because it became a much more solid offer once she explained all those things. Increased deposit, you rarely see this. The increased deposit, normally what that can come from is, let's say somebody's trying to free up money, but it's not free at the time of the offer. So that could be anything like a 401k that you may want to go ahead and withdraw money, but it's going to take a while to transfer. That could be that your Aunt Gladys has got money, but she's trying to transfer it in, so you don't have it right there. It could be any one of those sort of things, and that could be an increased deposit. But again, rarely do you see that. I also want to let you guys know, if you're doing with a buyer and they're saying, oh, I can use my 401k as part of my funds and my deposit. Find out, make sure that they have to verify how much they can withdraw for that, because different 401ks have different limits for that. So I had one client that in his account had $38,000. So he thought, great, I'm pre-approved for $590,000. I can add 38,000. That's how much I can afford. Not so fast, sunshine. It ended up that his 401k only allowed him to withdraw. It was 2/3, so 66%. He could withdraw for a deposit and any funds towards a home, but that was it. So it wasn't the full 38,000, and it was quite a bit less, and things had to be adjusted from there. So if they've told you, all you have to do is just ask, hey, great, I'm glad you're able to, this is part of your proof of funds, the 401k. Have you verified how much you can withdraw? Just want to make sure. Simple question. The loan amount, and some of this is auto calculated here. The loan amount will go in there. And now this, you may have to calculate yourself, because see on F, there's a balance of down payment. If you miscalculate, and let's say I left off $800. So instead of being 523,800 here, I put in 523,000, then the balance of a down payment would have 800 down there. So sometimes you have to figure out the math, and in car forms themselves, there's little calculators that come up that help you, that kind of let you know, hey, you may need to do some calculations here, people. But that kind of lets you know, if you look, like your top number, your purchase price should be this amount. Your final purchase price at the bottom is the same amount. So the numbers in between need to equal that, and that's how that's gonna look on there. Now, the default is when you have the loan in there, it's going to be a conventional loan. Oh, by the way, if you notice, it says 97% of the purchase price. It just kind of clarifies that 3% is the down. It has, conventional, but if it's an FHA or a VA or something special, then that's when you would put that in there, what kind of a loan it is. With a VA, and I even believe an FHA, when you click that, it automatically puts in a disclosure for that as well. So that would be something that when you see that in paperwork, that's the reason why it's there. If you have a transaction coordinator such as Raha, she'll catch that too and make sure that that's in there. If you notice the initial rate not to exceed a certain amount, everybody usually chooses what the current interest rate and just puts on a point or something above it. So just so they know, it kind of gives that padding in there. This is the part of contract. Again, your clients, they've got, if they have the standard contingencies, they can have the inspection, the loan, and the appraisal contingency. And the standard for all three of them now are 17 days. But this also puts in there, hey, if something goes really crazy with the financing, bingo, it said in the contract it couldn't be above 4.2%, that sort of thing. It says right in there, it's 17 days standard. Can you see me when I'm moving my mouse around? Okay, great. So it's 17 days standard. And that's, again, the standard, but you can shorten that. That's when sometimes people will say, hey, can we shorten, any of the contingencies to make our offer more attractive? And that's what they're doing. So, but again, you have to make sure if you're working with vendors, such as lenders, Are you able to shorten it? Is this something they're able to do? If it's a cash offer, when you click all cash up in this area here, then that just becomes a moot point. That doesn't matter. Additional financed amount, again, usually you rarely see that. So that's not going to be something that you're going to really have to worry about. And if it does come up, it'll be explained to you. They're going to say, hey, we have this secondary way of finance. I mean, they're going to know about it. It's not like, oh, something came out of the blue in our mail today. That's not going to happen. And if you notice the occupancy type, what is it going to be? Primary, meaning they're going to live there. Secondary or investment. So it just depends. Usually the default is primary, especially for first-time home buyers. Balance of down payment, that would be like, oh, okay, well, it says 0 here. Well, that's because this offer here was an FHA offer. So our down was 3% and our EMD is 3%. So there is no balance. But let's say that their offer was a conventional loan and it would go ahead and the conventional is a 5%. That means that 3% went down on the initial deposit, but then 2%, which, you kind of have to do 2% times 540,000. That would go down here in the balance of the down payment. So then that way, like, oh, okay, that's part of the money that's coming in as the initial, as the down payment for the home. 3% went to the EMD. The loan called for a 5% down. So then you put in the other 2% at the balance of the down payment. Okay, that was a caffeinated run through on page 1. How did that go? Everybody get that? Okay.
Yeah, that was good.
This is one reason why when we first saw the new RPA, it was like, holy crap. But then literally a lot of us 2 days later, we're like, holy crap, this is so much better, because it's so much better. Okay, page 2. So seller credit. Usually, well, do you see seller credit in a normal market? Yes, you do. In this market, yeah, good luck with that. It's just a seller's market. Now, is it unheard of? No. Of course, there still can be other reasons for a seller credit. This is, by the way, not the repair part. This is pre-negotiated seller credit. Now, why would sellers do a credit? It's like, wait, they're making an offer on the home for 540, blah, blah, blah. I don't understand why we're doing a seller's credit. Well, maybe they need help with closing costs. So that's the reason why when you do a seller's credit, part of that could be like, oh, it's going to help with the closing costs, because your buyers may have like the right amount of money for the down, but they're squeaking by. They have the money for the down, they have money for this, they have money for that, but they don't have money for closing costs. Well, then maybe the seller is like, hey, you know what? We really like their offer. We'll go ahead and put it in the RPA that we're doing a closing cost. We're helping with that. We're just doing a seller credit. That could be part of it. Sometimes there's other reasons why you may do a seller credit as well. And then they let them know that. Don't assume you can ask for a seller's credit. As a listing agent, I had a contract that came in and they automatically put in their seller's credit of 10,000. I called up the buying agent. I'm like, why is this here? And I mean, it just sounded like some goofy dude. And he goes, well, I thought I'd give it a shot. Okay, you just told me never to work with you, never to work with you.
Yeah.
So yeah. Additional finance terms, that's something, again, it's not going to magically appear. Oh my God, what do I do with this? Usually you're not going to see anything filled in there. Simple as that. Verification of all cash, that there's sufficient fund. The default is 3 days. Usually it's attached. So, the default is attached, if you see, or it's 3 days. Right now in this market, you want it attached. You don't want to send in an offer and go, oh, trust us, in 3 days, we'll get it to you. No, as a listing agent, if I have all things being equal, I was to look at the different offers, I want to make sure everything is there when I can evaluate it. Because there's going to be, you're basically doing a reasonable trust between you and the other party. And part of that is you want to make sure that you did your homework and show them, hey, you can follow through with this. Verification of down payment and closing costs attached to the offer. And so same thing, that's a default there. We were waiting for a letter on this one. So I did attach that there, but I let the agent know, look, or checked it there. I let the agent know, look, we're waiting on a letter, and literally the people are up on the mountain and they have no access to their computer or smartphones. As soon as they do, they'll DocuSign the letter and you'll get a copy showing that they're going to be gifting 30,000 towards this deal. So she's like, okay, Rob, no problem. I understand. But I made sure she knew that. You know, I did let her know, hey, this is the reason why it's not attached. This is the reason why it's coming. Verification of loan application. That's and you can see right over here, it's the pre-approval. And the pre-qual, you know, people really don't give a lot of, the pre-qual is like, well, that's lovely, but you know, that's like you going in a car dealership and saying, oh, I want the new Mustang electric car. Well, SUV, you know, that runs you 80 grand. Sure, that's nice. How much can you afford? Let's verify that, you know, just don't tell me that's what you want. So, you know, the thing is there too with the pre-qualification, that's lovely, but you haven't really been, you know, investigated to do all the numbers and figure it out. And so the pre-approval is going to be much stronger. And again, you can go ahead and have it, the default is attached to the offer. Okay, so, and you're like, oh, intentionally left blank. There were times before in the contract, people would get confused. Is that an I or a 1? Okay, now they're just like, don't worry about it, okay? There's nothing in I, okay? So now you're looking at J. Final verification of condition. Usually it's 5 days. That's called the walkthrough. You know, that's when we say final walkthrough of a home. And you're walking through, and basically what you're just affirming is, hey, they should be at a point where most things are moved out or taken down, and is a home in the same condition as when you first saw it. Now, most of the time a final walkthrough shouldn't take that long, but we've had agents in our office, such as Tim. He had a final walkthrough that was 2 hours. I mean, all of us were like, what? And it was a townhome. So it was like not much on the outside to do a final walkthrough on, it was only internal. And they were trying to be nitpicky on everything. It's like, this is just a walkthrough. This is an inspection. That's all it is, just a final walkthrough. There is, by the way, a form, verification, I think it's VIP, verification inspection property. And that's basically, you're saying, yeah, we did the final walkthrough and it all looks kosher. Can you close escrow without it? Yeah, it happens all the time. But there is a form just in case you want to make sure everything's official in there. Assignment request, don't worry about that. That's, you know, that's something you're really not going to deal with. And yeah, that's no big deal. All the contingency section, the loan, you know, your loan contingency, 17 days after acceptance, bingo. Now, can you get a loan, but they're going to tell you, oh, it's no contingency. And you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, it could. Because what if this person is an investor, they have an excellent relationship with the bank, or they just have a crap load of money and they have a great relationship with the bank, and the bank has said, hey, don't worry about it. We'll fund whatever you want to buy for up to 5 million. You know, then you kind of know like, oh, okay, that means there's no loan contingency. Now, again, have a conversation with the lender before you make an offer like that. But it could be that you have a loan without a loan contingency. Most of the time, that's not going to be the case. I just don't want you being caught off guard in case somebody has a conversation with you and you're like, wow, that's outside the box. Yeah, that is. Appraisal contingency. That's where you have, you know, again, 17 days. Most of the time, people don't put a number. I have not really received a lot of offers where they put a number into 8B of what a minimum should be. If you, the thing is that if you commit to that, then basically there is no way to back out. Now, the seller agent may like that. So let's say this home here, you know, we made an offer of 540,000 and we said, okay, but the appraisal has to be at least, I'm going to go, you know, let's say just 535,000. That means that if the appraisal comes in at 535 or above, then our appraisal contingency, if you look at the wording of it, doesn't really apply because, oh, we don't really have a contingency because it appraised for above that. So we're good. But what if it becomes below? Well, then the contingency, you still have that because now it became in low of the amount that you actually stated in there. And again, no appraisal contingency. If there's some reason why you want to waive that, go ahead. You may have some people that are like, look, we know the appraisal contingency may be an issue in this market, but you have to have a conversation with the lender and with your clients, making sure this is clear. But you will have some affluent clients that will have the money to back up like, hey, we don't care if it comes in 20,000 or 30,000 less than what it's appraised at. We'll make up the difference. We have the funds to do so. And of course, you've verified because you're a good agent that they do have the funds to do so. And so they may say like, look, even though we have a loan, we want to waive the appraisal contingency to let the seller know that even though we're loan based, we still can compete with the cash offers that have no appraisal contingency. If this was a regular market right now where we're balanced, I may not be saying that quite as much, but right now we're in a seller market. So we're seeing a little bit more of that right now. But whenever you have a situation where your buyers are waiving contingencies, you educate and have that conversation with them that they fully understand what they're doing. There's some really fly-by-night agents out there saying, you've got to do this, otherwise you're not going to compete. Oh, okay. And people don't realize that when they remove that contingency, they committed to something that if it doesn't come out the way they want, well, too bad, so sad, you already removed that contingency. That's not a reason to cancel. Yes. Investigation of property is 17 days. And if you notice, by the way, all of these can be shortened, as I've said before, but these are all the standards. And investigation of property means, and think about your timeline there, and this is dependent on you as an agent. That's when you have already done your inspections, your buyer has reviewed the inspections, they've done a request for repairs, if there are any, and all of that's been negotiated out, and then you're fine with that and you'll remove your inspection contingency. So the thing is that when some people, I've known some agents like, oh yeah, we got into escrow, I'm going to see if we can't get an inspector out later this week or something. You've already lost 7 days. And your people, like that's a lot of time to lose. So as soon as you enter escrow, in fact, I know a lot of agents who will even tentatively schedule their inspections when they're positive they're going to enter escrow, or they think they have a really good chance, and then cancel it in case they didn't get, their offer accepted. But they do it as soon as they know. So then that way the inspections can be done, and then they can go ahead and review them with their buyers. And if there's any requests for repairs, they can get that stuff all squared away as well. Any questions on that one? Okay. Informal access to property. This is something that's kind of new. And what that means is that they can go ahead and come back on the property. Well, why would they want to come back? Well, what if they want to measure something and figure out, oh, we want to order that blue velvet couch, just like Gabe has at his house, and we want to make sure it's the right size. So they want to come in and measure where they can put that lovely blue velvet couch. What if they want to buy stackables for their wash machine and their dryer? Well, they want to measure where it's going to go and actually what dimensions work and so on. So that could be some of the informal access to the property that they still have in the default 17 days to do that sort of thing, but that's separate from the inspections. So the reason why it's there separately too is, what if you made your inspection contingency 10 days, but you want to keep their informal access to 17? So then that way, no, you're moving on with the transaction and you've already removed your contingencies, but your buyers are gearing up to move in. And some of their gearing up is maybe they need to do a measurement. Maybe they forgot what something is like and they need to, oh, that's right. Where is that sink located in that bathroom? Or does that, I can't see in the pictures, does that sink, does it have the all-in-one faucet, or is it the one where all 3 items are separate? That kind of stuff is what that would be for. Review of the seller's documents. Now your sellers have, it's a little bit down more when they have to turn in their documents, but when your sellers have all of their disclosures, there's 17 days for them to review. And that's that. Same thing with a title report. You're given a title report, and how long do you have to review that title report to make sure everything is clear? The common interests. Usually that's going to be like the HOA stuff, and again, most of this people just leave default, most of that stuff in there is default. Review or leased or liened items, it has right in there, which is great because before people be like, what does this mean? Solar panels, water filtration. It could be, those are the two big boys, but there could be a number of other things that are leased on a property. And any of those things like, okay, that has to transfer. And so all of that stuff has to be reviewed. And then sale of buyer's property. This is when you need the contingent upon purchase. So this is when, of course, your buyers are selling a property so they could purchase this one. And so that means that, oh, that's one of the things in there that you check off to make sure, oh, these sellers are aware this is what needs to take place. Now, in a market such as this, nobody's really concerned about that because the property, if it's priced right, is going to sell. But let's say in a more balanced market, especially if you had buyers that were greedy with their home, or they thought their home was fabulous and nobody loved that linoleum that was peeling in the kitchen. Well, that was one of the issues that was taking place. So it's taken longer for that home to sell. That's one where, oh, that may become an issue. Like, oh, we don't know if it's gonna sell. This just lets everybody be aware of, hey, that home has to sell in order for them to purchase this home. And that's usually when you also have a conversation with the listing agent. This is what's going on. This is what's taking place. And we've accepted many offers at times that have been like, it's contingent. And in fact, I had a number of them last year that they were contingent on the sale of their current property, but the other agent and I are like, oh, in this market, it's going to sell. So I'm not really worried about it. How much is it priced at? I looked up the information, how much it was worth. I'm like, yep, that'll sell. So that was fine. Time of possession. Normally it's upon the day of recording, but I do have a closing this coming week. And we technically close tomorrow is our date when we're supposed to close. I have a feeling we're actually going to close on Friday, and they're supposed to take possession 3 days afterwards. Well, I got a call from the buying agent today that they can take possession on Sunday morning. So, which is technically would be a day early. That's fine. But it's in the contract of when possession is. Normally, the possession is when it's recorded. So that's the reason why when you're in a transaction, you'll hear from the title rep emailing or contacting the agents involved saying, hey, we've been recorded. Bingo. At that moment, the sellers no longer own the home. The buyers now are the owners of the home. And that's when it's been recorded. Usually, you negotiate the agents, hey, when do we drop off the keys? How do you want to drop off the keys? That sort of stuff. It's usually very friendly, by the way. But this just makes sure. Seller occupied or vacant units, close of escrow, and that kind of defines all of that in here. If there's tenant occupied units, of course, that's if the property is a rental property. Now, your buyers may be moving into, let's say, a home or a duplex, and they're planning to live in there, but you still have tenants, so you have to, figure out, okay, when are they supposed to be moving out? Okay, any question on any of that stuff so far? Okay,
No, that's good.
I mentioned, oh, go ahead, what?
No, I said that's good.
Oh, seller of a delivery of documents, that's self-explanatory, that's all the disclosures. If you have a listing, and usually even as soon as you take a listing, a lot of your disclosures you give to your seller so they can fill them out ahead of time. So as soon as you enter escrow, bingo, here's all the documents. The sign and return of escrow instructions. Once they get the instructions, yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. The fees for paying the HOA documents, because HOA is always going to charge you for all the documents that are needed to do all the HOA stuff. So that's part of what's involved there. Smoke alarms, detectors, yeah. And evidence of represented authority. That's usually, if I recall correctly, that's the part where if you are not the actual person, but you're representing the person involved, then, hey, here's the documentation to back that up. That could be, what if you have, like for me, I specialize in seniors. So what if you have a senior where you have a family member or a friend who's been given the power of attorney that allows them to conduct the business. And it specifies that they're allowed to sell the home or take care of all of that kind of stuff. Well, then that's when that evidence, you provide that, and it's 3 days. Anything from there? Okay, going just a few minutes over, but this stuff is the super easy stuff here. Before, not all of this was specified in there. Now they have so many things specified in there because people would be like, oh, we had a Ring doorbell and they took it with them. Okay, so is it included or not included? And many of these things will be listed on the MLS now too. So you can see if it's there or if it's not. But I want to let you know, if it's on the MLS, that doesn't mean it's necessarily contractual. The only thing on the MLS that's contractual is your buyer commission. That's the only thing. Everything else is like, oh, yeah, that's what it should be. But if something changes, oh, well, whatever. This is when it locks it in. This is part of the contract. So here, like this was a number of things. Now, it said right on the MLS that they wanted the dishwasher in there. They were offering a barbecue. And of course, the stove was part of it. And they even said bathroom mirrors. I'm like, bathroom mirrors, but I could see why, because they were kind of like nice bathroom mirrors. I'm like, okay. So they put it in the MLS. So we checked all that stuff off. And then if there's any items that are specifically excluded, then, this lovely chandelier or whatever, then you might want to specify that in there as well. Allocation of costs. This is when, who pays for what. Pretty much this is very self-explanatory here. Who pays for that? There's usually the default. The seller pays for the NHD. Usually the seller pays for the smoke alarms, the carbon monoxide detectors, the water heater bracing, the government required inspection and reports. If there's anything like that. The escrow fees, usually each pays their own, and that's always a good way to phrase it. That's why now they have a box. Before it wasn't like that. So that way each does pay their own. If you're on the buyer side, you almost always put seller choice, because if you want your deal accepted in this kind of a market, that's what you need to do. But if there's some reason why you want to have the choice of escrow or title or any of those things, okay, then go ahead, but make sure you have a good reason why, because usually the listing agent is going to want to have their preference of that. County taxes and fees and city transfer taxes usually the seller. HOA transfer fees are usually the seller. If you notice, they automatically have the certification and the fee for prepping the documents automatically in there. Private transfer fees, if there are any. Some of the stuff you don't need to check if you know that it's not going to apply. Home warranty is usually covered by the seller, but usually there is an amount that you don't exceed. Sometimes you may want to go ahead and call whoever is going to be your warranty person and ask, hey, this is the home. What is a good amount we should not, go above and cap it at? Now, even in this instance, I put $600 that we didn't want to exceed that. And we even got counter offered that they didn't want to go above $500. So we were fine with that. But I talked to the warranty, and Mary Mendoza, she said to me, she goes, well, Rob, we have an excellent, really excellent for $50 more. And I said, no problem. I'm going to tell my buyers they probably should pay that extra $50 more. And so then that way they get the really good warranty and they don't have to worry about anything. So that's what we went ahead and did. But usually it's customary for the seller. And then here, then you go on to all the other things. So, and most of this is like then just all backing up of what we just went over. So I wanted to cover that in a little bit over 30 minutes. That's the quick RPA breakdown. That way it gives you just an idea of what is going on with the RPA. And that's going to be basically all the meat of it in there. Now, if you wanted to dive a little bit deeper or figure out some of the other things, that's fine. But if you just took that information, the rest of it's pretty self-explanatory, but read through it and get to know it. So that way, when your buyers are asking you questions about it, you're able to answer those questions and help them out. So any questions on the RPA?
No, you covered that really well.
Okay.
Thank you.
This has been very helpful.
Good, good. And again, I want to do a workshop on this. So what we'll do is we'll have a listing contract. We'll have an RPA contract, have you guys walk through it, put it together yourself. And then we'll break it down and have a discussion on that. And like, okay, what did you do? What did you offer? And you guys may even have competing offers, and we'll talk about what that looks like.
Oh, that'd be a great
Sounds
idea.
fun.
If we
Yeah.
can be if we can be buyer's agents and just submit stuff to you and then
Yeah.
tell us why, and then just see, and then you could break it down for us. That would be cool, because honestly,
on.
like, when I saw it through the other end, it's then you kind of just see why it's better to be a listing agent, because you've seen all these contracts and you're like, wow, it's a
Yeah.
lot of Wahoo agents. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. And then we'll, like I said, we'll also do a listing contract workshop where I'll give you guys a property, one of my properties, or I may give you two properties, because the listing contract is super easy. So in comparison of this. And so I want to see, you know, how you guys list it and what are some of the different aspects to that, and a little bit of background too. So, okay, great. Thanks for being here, guys. I really appreciate it. And go out there and